What? Why are you shaking your head?
You're welcome.
Hello and welcome to the CFF All Access Podcast. I am Eric Froton with Josh Chevalier and Zach Hall with Mike Bainbridge. Congratulations on his nuptials this weekend. Very exciting, of course. And before we get into, a topic, Josh, you'll be marrying Mike. Isn't that true?
Yeah.
You're literally marrying him. This show, a marriage of this show.
Might be the shortest wedding ceremony ever, but it's going to be awesome. So they gave me some good questions. I had them answer a bunch of questions about why they want to marry the other person, and we'll reveal those in front of everybody. They get to hear their answers for the first time. So that's my one thing that I do well in a wedding ceremony. So I'm excited.
Okay, so this isn't your first wedding ceremony by any means, Josh.
Nah. I've done about a dozen.
All right,
yeah.
Well, everybody who watched the CFF All X podcast is very excited about the CFF royal wedding between Mike and Amy, of course. But in the here and now, we have something else going on this week besides the royal CFF wedding, and that is the Elite 11 Finals is this week in Manhattan Beach, California. That starts tomorrow. It is Monday. It'll start Tuesday. It'll go Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday afternoon, where the Elite 11 Finals MVP will be named. And just over the past couple of years, a couple of very consequential quarterbacks have won that. Jackson Arnold 2 years ago in that star-studded 2026 NFL QB class. And now this past year, Julian Sayin and Dylan Raiola really made impressions there with Julian Sayin winning it. But this year, there's, in terms of storylines, there's three tip top QBs that I see, and I want to say it's probably like 5 or 6 5-stars, but I look at it as one, you got Bryce Underwood, just so you guys, everybody in this audience is anointed. Bryce Underwood, 99 rating in 247 and the composite. I mean, just a near perfect prospect, is not doing the Elite 11 camps. Again, this is not uncommon. You'll have one, maybe two of the top guys who don't participate. Arch Manning did it a couple years ago, totally understandable. And this year, Bryce Underwood, who is a made man in many respects, going to LSU. But there's two other quarterbacks that I feel like come in head and shoulders ahead of the rest of the class in terms of, the chances of winning the Elite 11. And the first is Tavion St. Clair, is a Ohio State commit, Bellefontaine, Ohio native, 6'4", 225. He's a 98 on the 247 player rating and a .9927 composite. He is the 247 QB2, completed 70% of his passes, ran for 352 yards and 4 touchdowns, 9.7 yards per carry. Now, the things that you watch right out of the gate when you see Tavion St. Clair is he has a cannon on his shoulder, plenty of gas, big arm. You frequently see him throwing through receivers, not to them, through them. Just incredible velocity and gas. In terms of physical tools, it's all there. You look at him and you're like, this guy is born to do it. His timing, it could be a touch better. He'll hit the pocket a little bit behind, can throw on the run pretty well, but that's definitely something you want to see in person. Difference between going and throwing off platform when structured and another one when he's got to do a full pro day workout, one throw after another, where you just see the full gamut of what he's capable of. So in terms of St. Clair, just the full physical package and everything kind of came into his own last season. Wasn't as a freshman or a sophomore, didn't make quite the same impact as the number 2 QB coming in, and that's Julian Juju Lewis, 6'1", 185, USC commit from Carrollton, Georgia. Again, he is also a 98 on the 247 Sports player rating. He is the QB3 for the composite. He's got a .9959 rating. So he actually has a higher composite rating than St. Clair. And the reason why is even though he lacks the prototypical QB size, Julian Lewis is surgical about how he runs the offense. You watch him And it kind of gives you sort of Bryce Young vibes because he's not big, he's not imposing, but the way he runs that offense over at Carrollton, he is in complete command and is, a true distributor. And when you watch Bryce Young do his thing, he's out there as soon as he gets it, boom, pivoting. He knows what his read is. He's counting. That's where the advantage is, and he's going for it. It's the same feeling you get with Julian Lewis when he's out there in the pocket. Max Prep's freshman and sophomore player of the year in 22, 23, reclassified a finalist for the Gatorade National Player of the Year as a sophomore. Okay, so even though he's running in high school, some did a offense is very sophisticated. Kind of reminds me of the Oregon offense a little bit, and that Willie Stein's running. RPO heavy, a lot of misdirection, but gosh, very nimble in the pocket, so smooth when he's doing his designed rollouts, everything. Julian Lewis and Tavian St. Clair, I cannot wait to watch the two of them throw the ball. Josh, can you tell me somebody that you're interested in hearing some reports back on from the Elite 11 class?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, this is total homerism here, but Luke Nickel, so he's a Miami commit, and I'm intrigued. I mean, he's a guy that I believe he's a 3-star, 88, and so he's kind of a lower level guy making it to the Elite 11. I feel like he has had a rise. He won a Georgia State title this last year, I think for 3,900 yards and a bunch of touchdowns. And he's a guy that Shannon Dawson identified pretty early, the OC at Miami. And I don't know if many people know this, but Shannon's been a guy that's been able to identify really good under the radar quarterbacks. So Mac Jones, he was the first one to offer him before he ended up going to Bama. And then also he was like pretty close to grabbing Stetson Bennett from Georgia when he was at Southern Miss. Like he recruited him pretty hard. And he ended up going over to Georgia. Obviously, we know that story. But this is a guy, Shannon Dawson, that loves the accurate QBs. He's able to identify kind of that fit for his system. So I'm intrigued. We'll see. Elite 11 is really where I start to pay attention to the quarterbacks for the next year, because I think that's a place where the guys separate. So it's going to be interesting to see all of these guys throw and see what they got. But yeah, Luke Nickel, just from a personal perspective, I'm intrigued to see. Okay, he's checked a lot of boxes so far, but Elite 11 is a different animal. I'm also intrigued, Froton, to see who you catch passes from this year.
Oh yeah, who's going to be this year, right?
Yeah, I mean, who are you aiming for? A certain QB? I mean, you loved your boy saying last year. Is there a guy that you're aiming for that you want to catch passes from this year?
Well, there's got to be a local element to it, because I didn't catch it at the Elite 11. I set up a throwing session afterwards, over on July 3rd, actually it was last year. But I would think probably Achilles Smith would be the guy I'm targeting the most because he's a San Diego Lincoln High School product. Mm-hmm. So I can drive on down the road to Lincoln and check out, some of their workouts. And Lincoln is, one of the true class high schools in terms of athletically in San Diego County. So I would love to see what else is available there, but that's, we nothing wrong with checking things out. Hey, maybe somebody else, emerges and I can drive up to LA and see somebody else, or, somewhere in Arizona or somewhere relatively close. You never know if somebody pops and I'm out there catching passes. Might even throw some wiffle balls at people. Who knows?
There we go.
That's the hand-eye coordination.
Is Lincoln where Roderick Robinson went to school?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's quite a program they have there. But before I kind of put a bow on that, let's take our first break here on the CFF All Access Podcast. All right, I will wrap this up with a couple of players that I'm really interested for different reasons in seeing over there at the Elite 11, because I'm curious. Because my evaluations on them is still up in the air. Because I see good things, and I see some things where I'm like, all right, this has to be cleaned up. First off, Husan Longstreet, he's a Texas A&M product, and he is a Corona, California product over at Centennial High School, which, hey, that's right up the road. Maybe Husan could be a contestant here, and I'm very interested to see what he's capable of, because QB6, according to On3, he is the QB4, according to 247 Sports, with a 98 player rating and 9.777 composite. So very, very highly rated guy. And you look at him, a real run threat. Like that is absolutely legit. 6'1", 195. But his release point, he's got kind of a low release point. Isn't an over-the-top type thrower. Has a little bit of a wind-up and a little bit of high effort to his delivery. So, with the way that he kind of goes about that, the ball doesn't quite slice the air in the same manner that some of these bigger round quarterbacks does, but he has that athleticism, right? So he has a little bit more of the dual threat aspect on his tape. I want to see him throw. And I want to see him do that off platform. I want to see that the pro day workout on day 2 that all the quarterbacks do, because I feel like he's definitely got the part of the dual threat, but what does he look like in structure? Throwing those 35-yard passes dead on the money to stationary wideouts. Like these are some of the things I look at for those drills. And 2, Deuce Knight, Notre Dame quarterback recruit. Okay. And this is important because look, you got CJ Carr, who's heading in 2024 to Notre Dame, vying to be the one who takes over for Riley Leonard when he moves on after this season. Are they going to bring in another QB, or does CJ Carr or Deuce Knight? He will obviously want a challenge, probably come in, sign early. He's been committed to Notre Dame for a while. 9.729 composite score. Only a 93 rating, according to 247 itself. You see, that's a pretty a big gap between those two metrics. Big lefty, too. Like it has those Michael Penix vibes. He will pull it down and run. And when he does, he's a load. He's a big dude, 6'4", listed at 206. He kind of looks bigger than that to me on tape. But calm, settled feet when throwing, good balance in the pocket. Like his mechanics are pretty sound. It's not wild, in terms of his shoulder opening, his off shoulder flying open. As a pitcher, I look at those sort of things. He's got good velocity and a relaxed stroke. But, I watched him because he plays for Lipscomb in Tennessee. I watched him against Saraland, which is who Ryan Williams played for. And that was in the opening on ESPN last year. And Saraland's quarterback is KJ Lacy, who, Josh, is a Texas commit. Yeah. One hell of a game, like probably the best high school game I've seen. I watched all year last year. I went back and watched it again. And Deuce Knight had a very tough game, right? So you have to get the good and the bad, the yin and the yang with these players. I want to see how these two guys do. I'm not sure what I'm getting out of Longstreet in terms of consistency with his stroke. And then with Deuce, I like some of what I see from him mechanically, but my gosh, he had a heck of a time against, one of the best teams on their schedule, if not the best team, Saraland, Alabama. So those two I am very interested in seeing. And we will now get on to the dynasty portion of the show.
Yeah, let's do it. So tonight we're going to do a 1-round supplemental draft. So a few weeks ago, we did 1-round freshman draft for the incoming freshmen. So now we want to take players that are going to be available in your pool. And so the way that we've chosen the player pool is Jared, actually, Froton and I did a Defending the Natty show a couple days ago with Jared and Nate. And so Jared had a preset list of supplemental players that he's in about 4 or 5 leagues. We're in a lot of leagues together. And these are all players that were available in those dynasty leagues. And so these are sub 10% owned players that are available in most of our dynasty leagues. So Jared verified that. We got that. If you guys have an issue with this list, it's Jared's fault. Go.
Oh, you're putting on Jared. Jared Wilson had to do all this hard work for us here, and you're burying him. Hopefully he gets it right. Jared did. This list was, dude, he put so much work into this. I don't care if it's right, wrong, whatever. He did a great job. Thank you, Jared.
He did. It's all love. I love Jared, man. We go way back.
Absolutely.
So we have a list of players that we're going to be choosing from. We're going to do 12 picks. So 1 round, 12 picks. And we're just going to go one after the other, give a little analysis and then call it a day. Cause we got 2 Celtics fans on this podcast. This is selflessness as we speak. These dudes are giving up a potential NBA championship moment to do this podcast. So
for college fantasy football, that's why it's worth it, though, right, Zach? I think
it is. It is.
Oh, Jared's in the comments over here. Hold on.
Oh
He
yeah,
said this wasn't the kind of credit I was expecting.
Don't think you're gonna slide that by Jared. You know, I'm with you, buddy. I hear you.
Yes, I'll eat crow all day. Nah, Jared, we really appreciate you, man. And thank you for giving us this list. So, all right. Our first person that's up is Eric. So, Froton, you got the floor here, man. Who are you going with the first pick in the supplemental draft?
Oh, well, Jared, our boy, he killed me. He killed me when we did the supplemental draft. I had the number one pick in the last one, too. And I took who I think was a somewhat controversial pick in a way. But I am going to stick to my guns. I know that the QB position is, all valuable, and having a lockdown QB is, a clear path to having a dominant franchise. But I can't pass up Jeremiah Smith. I just can't do it. I mean, the man, speaking of the Elite 11 finals, I had heard the rumblings before last year's camp, and he was, him, Chris Henry, who is, a year below him. Those are the two best wide receivers I saw. The best tight end was Luke Reynolds at the camp, but I'm talking Jeremiah Smith just looks different than everybody else on that field. He's there with the best of the best coming in, and he was unstoppable in a way that I haven't seen anybody else as a skill player be dominant in the 3 years that I've been to the Elite 11 camp. I mean, he was just 6'4", 225, and everything, the fluidity in which he moves, the dominance, physicality too. Like he's not sparing any feelings out there just because you aren't a 6'4", 225 freak. And that's what I want. I want to see somebody who has the Drake London mentality where I'm going to square up. You're going to have a quick hitch, throw it to me. I'm going to face up on that receiver, on that corner who's 7 yards off the ball. And I'm going to throw their face into the turf and go for 10, 15 yards. And he's got that in addition to the ability to dial up downfield like Marvin Harrison. It's just, I want certainty at the top of the draft. I want a lock. And Jeremiah Smith is the lock of locks for high school receivers. I'm taking him number one overall. No offense, Jared, in the comments.
All right. So Jared just asked a good question that we need to clarify.
Yeah.
Is this a freshman and supplemental draft? Jared, notice it is only supplemental. So no freshman, Froton. So you got to repick here.
Excellent. So,
well, that was an amazing breakdown of Jeremiah Smith.
I'm very excited. There will be no freshman here. In that case, I will be taking somebody who Jared took now in the supplemental draft. I'm taking Abu Sama then. And the reason why is pretty clear, especially if it's a C2C draft, you have to consider this guy, because how many fully formed battle ready running backs are you going to get in a supplemental that have already gone and tore it up over the second half, last 4 or 5 weeks of the season. I have proof of concept. It's the Iowa State offense where Matt Campbell leans on his running backs. Didn't really have it up until Sama really established himself last year. Out goes Cartavius Norton, UNC Charlotte. It's his deal. Give me Abu Sama.
Eli Sanders left too, right? I mean, they all dispersed in that backfield. So that's
yes, it was a mass exodus. It became clear to everybody with a pair of eyes that it's the Abu Sama show.
Yeah, I love that pick. Zach, what you got to?
Yeah, so I'm going to stick at running back just because I feel like running back is the shallowest of the player pools here. I'm going to go Jaheim White at West Virginia. The one knock I'd have on him is just what's it going to look like with CJ Donaldson. I think we all have White projected RB1. I think he could split some time. Definitely when I'm looking at supplemental guys, I want a guy that's going to get me value this year. I think the way he ended the year was really strong. Last year, that system, they're going to use the running back. Garrett Green is probably going to steal some of the rushing production there. But I like Jaheim White. You can get a couple years with him, and just with I feel like it's the thinnest position out of what we're looking at right now. So I would go with Jaheim White at West Virginia.
Yeah, that's really good. I like that pick a lot. For me, I'm gonna go. And this is tough because, you want guys with multiple years left, especially this early on. And so I'm going to go with Denzel Boston. I think he's a guy that we all like a lot. And so I'm a little bit afraid that he's going to go off this year and show enough that he's a redshirt sophomore. So he could go pro after this year, but maybe the team will be so bad that he won't put up just crazy numbers. But Denzel Boston's a guy that I think you can have for a couple years. He looks awesome, right? We've talked about him on the show before, but his ability to get off of press coverage, to use his hands to get separation. I mean, he can run deep routes. He can also win underneath. And so he's a guy with multiple years left that I'm going to pick here at the 1.3. Proton, you're up.
Sounds good. Jeez, are you sure? We're blowing through these.
Well, you want to talk about Denzel Boston?
No. I'm just saying. I think we're going to get 2 rounds out.
Well, let's do it. Let's do 2. Yeah,
I think you too. Yeah,
I think we're humming here, and I want to make sure we're getting all Scott. So I'm going to go with another running back. It's a common theme here. When you get certainty, when you get a role defined in a running back room that is proven to be a profitable center, you have to take them seriously. And Rickey Hunt for Ohio has to be taken seriously. Even amongst rookie freshman drafts, you're going to see him going in the first round amongst some of these bonus baby 5-star super prospects, because even though he's at Ohio, C.A. Bangura, bye-bye Bangura the drum somewhere else, threw him right out of town with his 17 carry performance over the course of the bowl season. 17 carries, 115 yards, 4 touchdowns, and then even caught a pass for 18 yards and a touchdown just to smother it in Georgia Southern's face in a 41-21 victory. I just think, again, proof of concept, defined role, a team that, last year leaned on their defense, had an excellent defensive team, Ohio. And as part of that, they want to control the ball and protect it. So I am going with Rickey Hunt.
Hey, Froton, Jared had a question here. Any worry about Anthony Tyus at all? I know he's been listed as the starter in Phil Steele's magazine. And so any worry there? Or do you think, what do you think about that?
Sure. There's obviously, when you're dealing with a MAC running back room, there's going to be conjecture. There's always somebody who's challenging you. And it's the same issue that we kind of ran into with Lou Nichols. If you remember good old Lou back in the day at Central Michigan, he gets his 300 carries. And then the next year, he's nothing. He's just nothing. And that's always the issue we're going to have to deal with here with somebody coming up behind him. But, where we already have those 2 big running backs off the board and having some element of certainty there, a proven room. Anthony Tyus isn't owned anywhere either. So if you want to get Anthony Tyus, he's going at a very reasonable rate. And somebody I think you got to kind of kick around. But, hey, it's a good point, and we'll find out as camp opens.
Yeah, I like that a lot. All right, Zach, 1.5.
Yeah, so I'm going to go QB here. And I'm not sure I love the pick, but I'm going to go Gio Lopez, freshman. So hopefully get a couple years out of this guy. The one thing I really like about Lopez is in Major Applewhite, in that system with a running quarterback, a dual threat guy, that's where there's a lot of value. I know the spring game and 0 completions in that spring game. It's just not great. He did do a little bit last year. We did get to see a little bit, but he's a guy that just in this offense, I think he's going to be just with his dual threat ability, be able to be a guy that's pretty valuable. And you get a couple, right? I believe he's just a freshman. He was a redshirt freshman. So G5 quarterback that's going to start as a redshirt freshman is can be really good value. So that's where I would go with my next pick.
Yeah, that's good. For me at 1.6, I'm going to pretty soon pivot to these 1-year players, because the pool of players that got 2 years, left and that are guaranteed to be there are just few and far between. But I'm going to take one more. And this is a guy that I'm not taking anywhere in any kind of best ball drafts or anything, but I know, Eric, you love him, is Lee Beebe. Yeah, Lee Beebe. So I mean, he very well could be the guy this year, right? And so if he is, you're going to get him for multiple years. And if he's not the guy by himself this year, he's going to still have a role. And I think next year it looks like the backfield's pretty clear for that dude to just take over and be a monster. And he certainly has the talent. If there's some pass protection issues or something like that, hopefully he'll figure that out. And you'll at least get 1 or 2 monster years out of him. So I'm going to go Lee Beebe here at 1.6.
Yeah, the same thing that Jared said about Ohio, you could also kind of look at here where, Jacobs got hurt, and then that opened the door for Beebe to have that secondary role behind Jermaine Brown. Now you'd assume Jacobs would be back by the time, fall camp opens.
Right.
But again, what's the cost of acquisition on Jacobs? Nothing.
Right.
So I want, with those backfields, there's nothing wrong at all with keeping your house in order, as we like to call it in the NCAA, and just stacking that backfield, making sure, hey, okay, maybe it isn't Lee Beebe. Maybe it's Jacobs. Well, you can get Jacobs probably in round 7, 8, 9. He's not somebody who is a priority. Same thing on the Anthony Tyus end, where you can cobble together that whole room and not have to worry about it. I am on the clock here now, and I'm going to go with LSU wide receiver Kyren Lacy.
I like it.
Reason why is, obviously he was a starter last year at LSU alongside those 2 alphas on the outside with Neighbors and Thomas. And while they don't have Jayden Daniels there throwing that deep ball, which, man, if there's anything Jayden Daniels could do, it's dial up that deep ball last year.
Yeah.
Beauties. You've got Garrett Nussmeier, who needs no introduction around the college fantasy landscape. Has his father, Doug, was a backup at Dallas for years and years and years, clipboard holder, is an elite QB coach, as Josh has pointed out. And where you have that nice, soft transition to a veteran tested quarterback like Nussmeier, you just got to figure it's a scenario who is going to be the top receiver. From the reports early in camp, it looks like Kyren Lacy has taken that alpha role. Maybe there's potential, for somebody else. Zavion Thomas, I really, really like. I think he's got to be respected too. But with Lacy having that 1A sort of designation come out of spring, you have to respect it and give him that leg up. And again, if you keep Zavion Thomas in mind down the board, since he had 500 plus yards in that decrepit Mississippi State offense and looked great in the spring game, Zavion Thomas. Absolutely. I think he earns a starting role. And so does Justin Heisey, who decided to steal him from me in the industry CFB dynasty draft. He traded up. I had him ready to go on the bounce back on that 4th round. Traded up to the last pick in the 3rd round. Damn you, Heisey. I'm taking Kyren Lacy.
I love it. Yeah, we're all, I guess Froton and I in this industry dynasty draft together right now. And so I've been getting sniped left and right.
Oh, it's been
tough. Somebody Froton, man. You've been killing me.
I hate Teddy, my boy Teddy. I love Teddy.
Yes.
He's great. But I hate him because he's right in front of me. And in rounds 3 and 5, he sniped me on Mylan Graham. I have him ready to go for round 3. Nope. He's got him. And then he also sniped me with somebody. I don't even want to say this guy's name. I haven't said a word about that guy. I don't want to say it anymore because he can snipe me on someone I love. I don't want him in the next draft. So I'm going to keep it on that one. All right, go.
There we go.
Josh.
Yes.
Your turn.
Well,
Zach, sorry.
Yeah, we're going to take a quick break, actually. And then when we come back, Zach, you'll have the next pick. You're up, Zach.
All right. So I'm going to go with receiver Kaedin Robinson, App State. So he's a guy, 92 targets last year. He ended up with 10 touchdowns, 905 yards. So really solid season there. Only probably going to get him for a year. I believe he's a senior. But he's just one of those guys that when I'm looking at the supplemental draft, he's a guy that can give you some value this year. I have him as a top 35 receiver. And when you look at the player pool that's available, he's just one of the top guys there. So I'm going with Kaedin Robinson. We've talked about a lot just about that offense, and I think they're going to be good this year. They're going to score points, and he's going to be a centerpiece of that with QB Joey Aguilar. I know Froton, we talked about him last time we were on a little bit, and just I think he's in for another big season, and Robinson should be that top target for him.
Yeah, I love that pick. I mean, that guy went off in the bowl game. He was so consistent last year too. He was fun. All right. At what are we at? 1.9, I think, at this point. Yep. I am gonna take Mario Anderson. So I'm gonna go on a 1-year rental here. But I mean, I think for all of us, we have him, I think, at least as a top 15 CFF running back option. And so he's a guy that can play for you immediately. And look, we saw what other guys have done in this backfield before, including last year, when the dude from Blake Watson came in from ODU and just killed it last year in that backfield. So Mario Anderson, he's looking awesome so far in reports and spring ball. So I'm going to take a shot on Mario Anderson here at the 1.9, and I'm passing it to you, Froton.
All right. Well, I could probably use a QB at some point, and I might as well go with everybody's FCS to FBS darling, running Brennan Marion's offense over there at UNLV. We saw what Jaden Mayaba was able to do in that offense last year. Took UNLV to the Mountain West Championship game, which I was lucky enough to be in attendance for, against Boise State. Yeah, Boise State smoked UNLV in that game. But as everybody who follows college football knows, UNLV was nowhere close to any title game of any way, shape, or form for about 2 decades before Brennan Marion got in there and instituted the go-go offense for us. And with Matt Sluka, coming in and, likely, I mean, he's the odds-on favorite for the job. He did kind of get pushed a little bit there, according to some, but I feel like he probably should take that. With him being owned at a 0% rate and just coming in here cold, you have to kind of take that shot. You'll get multiple years out of him in theory, so long as you're able to secure it. And the potential out of that offense is, I feel like QB2, QB3 potential right out of the gate. Like I said, right here at the 110 in a non-freshman supplemental draft. That's pretty good value for me. I'm going to go with Sluka. Sluke him if you got him.
There you go.
Yeah, I like that pick. So I think I'm gonna stick with receiver here and another 1-year guy. I'm gonna go Jayden Higgins at Iowa State. So
good one. Good one.
Yeah. So I know I think he's kind of I feel like he's kind of a forgotten guy in that offense. I feel like he's drafted lower than most, but he's a top 35 receiver for me, and maybe only get him for a year here, but he's a guy 80 plus targets last year. He'll be productive in this offense. So another 1-year guy, but I'm going with Jayden Higgins.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
I like it.
All right. I'm going to go with here. I'm trying to figure out I'm going to go quarterback. I think I'm going to go back to running back. Go with Braylon McReynolds from South Alabama. He's a guy that I think is going to be the RB1 there at South Alabama. Certainly split carries a little bit with Kentrell Bullock, but man, he's smaller, but I love him out of the backfield. He got a lot of passes out of the backfield, and even with Gio Lopez coming in, he fed him in that way. I think he's pretty dynamic with the ball in his hands. I don't think he's big enough to then go P4. So I could see him staying in this system for at least a couple of years and being productive. And if something happens to Kentrell Bullock, then he gets pretty much all the workload. So I'm going to go Braylon McReynolds right here. And that ends the first round of this supplemental. And so we're plugging along. So we're going to go ahead and do round 2. I think everybody's motivated here to watch the Boston Celtics, but Motivated enough to do another round even.
Yeah, let's do it.
Nothing
Let's do it.
stops my love for CFF. Celtics or no. We got a whole second half left. Let's roll it.
Yeah.
Let's do it. All right. Froton, you kick off round 2, man.
Absolutely. A player that needs no introduction on this podcast. USC second-year wide receiver, Jacoby Lane. I don't even feel like I have to get too far into him. My love and my admiration and affection for Jacoby Lane has been documented all over the airwaves here in the ether. But again, I'll just get into it. Incredible bowl game. Saw himself even working in that rotation despite a very senior-led group out there by USC. You know, other than Zachariah Branch, who got a ton of slot work. I mean, it was those outside positions were filled. Lane in the bowl game looks great, goes out there and, you know, I would say even doubles down on it in the spring game. You know, would have had another touchdown, in fact, if he made an incredible, back shoulder twisting high point catch in the end zone. I think Mayava threw this ball on the left side, catches it, comes down, toe taps, and just hits the ground and it comes out. But I mean, that was as close. That was a catch, and it was probably like a reviewable type thing in real life. But you watch the speed of that. He catches it, and then he loses it. I'm glad he dropped the ball, because if he catches that too, then that's all over the highlights. And he's probably not going at a reasonable rate for which I think I can get him at. Everyone around the program singing his praises, despite the fact that he was the 4th rated wide receiver out of that big group behind Mekhi Lemon, behind Deuce Robinson, behind Zachariah Branch. It didn't matter. He got in and asserted himself as a true alpha in that room, and he will be the X receiver this year.
Yeah.
Jacoby Lane.
I love that, man. It's a good pick.
Yeah, that is a good pick. All right. So I think I am going to go with Brendan Sorsby at Cincinnati. So sophomore, he's a guy that can do a little bit on the ground. I think that's a good system for him. We saw what Emory Jones could do last year, which wasn't a lot, but I think Sorsby is going to be better than Emory Jones in that system. And Emory Jones gave us a top 50 season. And again, I think he's going to be better than that. He's a young guy and dual threat. He's going to get you some production on the ground as well. So going with Sorsby for my next pick.
Yeah, that's a good pick. Hey, I want to bring up a comment that Jared said in the chat. I thought this was really, really insightful. I think this could be a good talking point for us for a few minutes. But he said, only way I'm taking someone with 1 year of eligibility left in supplementals is I'm certain that player is the difference between me competing for a championship or not. And what do you guys think about that? Is that a strategy? I know we've all taken some 1 year players, or at least Zach and I have. I don't remember if you have, Froton, but what is y'all's thoughts on that? Do you agree with Jared? Do you disagree? What's your thoughts on 1 year players?
I think these drafts, it's really dependent on the roster you have, right? And what you're looking at. If you have a team, I really like these 1 year guys. I know in our league, Josh, 1 year I took Jalen Hurts, who was just a 1 year guy, and he got me to the playoffs. I think I ended up getting 3rd that year, but a guy like typically wouldn't really target the 1 year guys super early, but he was a guy that made a difference on my team. I wasn't as strong at quarterback, and he was just sitting there in that draft. I think I took him towards the end of the 1st round. So I think it really kind of depends on your roster makeup. And if you have, I agree with Jared, if it's a guy that's going to really get you there or not, you don't want to waste a 1st, 2nd round pick on a guy when you're loaded at receiver. You don't want to go pick another receiver that's, going to only be in your lineup a couple weeks out of the year. You might want to go target, but there's also a instance where maybe you're a little bit younger and you just need some of those 1 year guys to get you some value. So it's really, I look at it as where are the holes at, where am I weakest, and maybe go try and fill those holes with some of those 1 year players.
Yeah, that's good. What do you think, Froton?
Yeah, I can't help in these dynasty drafts. I want to build. I want to create the full dynasty pictures so that I'm rolling my team forward from year to year to year, and you don't have that lull, that rebuild. You have to be able to use those first few picks to get your premium prospects that you believe in. You go, do your research, look at what you like, and get your guys. Because if you don't get them now, you're not going to have the chance to get them down the road because they're going to be too valuable and they're going to be made men. Sure, everybody wants to put somebody on that's a junior or senior that you feel like, all right, that's a nice, vital piece that you can get in there. But you got to remember, everyone else is looking at this too and probably thinking, we want freshmen. So most of the time, you can get the upperclassmen in the second, third round. You got to build with that first round and probably even the second, in my opinion.
Yeah, totally. I mean, yeah, I can't think of too many years that I'm not taking freshmen very early, right? Like, so like a lot of these guys, even like a Mario Anderson, these are usually guys that I'm waiting on. I wouldn't pick them in the first round. There's freshmen involved in the draft.
Yeah.
Also, like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if any of us have ever really had a rebuilding team, to be quite honest. I mean, I played 10 years of CFF and I'm just not one that does it. And so part of it too is like you could take these guys, and I guess if you're not going to make the playoffs, then a Mario Anderson, like he's going to be good. You can trade him and build up some draft capital for the next year. If somebody's that good. So
no, that's kind of like, that's a philosophy I have, is if you're ever going to rebuild at the end of a season, not the beginning. And again, if you're not making the playoffs, that's where you take those guys that are going to be done and try and ship them off to somebody that's trying to compete for a championship and get some draft picks in that following year. So that's something I've had to do in our league, Josh, is I'm not going to make playoffs. So here's, send out some offers to try and grab some first and second round, maybe third round picks in that following year, and use that to either grab some younger guys, or, if you have a handful of picks through the first 3 rounds, you can take, you can get some young guys in and take a couple of these older guys as well. So,
yeah, I think that's really good. All right. Well, we'll continue the draft here. We're at 2.3. I'm going to take Tucker Gleason. Tucker Gleason's a guy that I like from Toledo a lot. And I think so, fun fact, I think I've mentioned this on the show before. He was the high school quarterback for Robert Wiener, who's the OC over there at Toledo. So they have a good connection. He's been waiting his time in that system. He'll be there for a couple of years. He's not a future NFL quarterback. And I don't see him going on an NIL deal somewhere else just because of the tie that he has with his high school coach. I know Coach Wiener from his high school days. I was the chaplain for his football team in Tampa. And so he's got a tight knit relationship with his players. His players love him. His quarterbacks love him. He spends a lot of time with them when they're in high school. So I do think Gleason will be there for at least 2 years playing quarterback there. So he's not just a 1-year rental that you're going to get. And he's going to score. I mean, Toledo quarterbacks, we know what they do. They score 20 to 25 points a game in their sleep. So I'm going to go with Tucker Gleason here. And you are up.
Where the hell are you not a chaplain? You're a chaplain in Tampa too? I thought you live in Texas.
I lived in Tampa for 2 years. So,
oh my God,
and I just got hooked.
You're all over the place. You're marrying Bainbridge up in Chicago. My gosh, Josh. Okay. Well, you've
been everywhere.
You're doing small things with great love, as always. That's a great pick with Tucker Gleason too. I was right, dead red, ready to take him. I mean, why not? When do we get the Logan Woodside, resurrection of the Toledo QB room? Yes. I want a 40-point, potential out of my QB. Once again, I mean, Logan Woodside was a dream. I mean, don't get me wrong. Daquan Finn was really good last year, but just isn't the level of 35 to 40 points per game that we saw out of the MAC during the golden era of the late teens and early 20s of MACtion, right? So I'm definitely down with that. I liked it and I wanted it. For me, I'm going to go with somebody I've already mentioned, and I really want to reinforce this. Zavion Thomas is for real at LSU Okay, again,
Love it.
500 yards. And Zach Armstead just pissed on that offense over there at Mississippi State. Just didn't care about it at all, and it showed. And with what he was able to do in limited action in terrible circumstances, goes to LSU, and he was frankly the star of the spring game in my estimation. I thought he looked incredible. And it wasn't just, he runs bare naked down the field and he's catching passes. I mean, he caught several passes, and he's doing it on all different forms of routes. And, the way he was manipulating defenders out there, sure, this is the LSU secondary of 2023. We saw what that looked like. But, they hit the portal hard, and this is still SEC caliber guys at a premium university. I feel good about Zavion Thomas's ability to be successful in that offense. I think he wins a starting job. And as soon as, heading into next season, he could be the wide receiver 1 there. I think he has that talent.
Yeah, I think that's a great point about wide receiver 1 because, Kyren Lacy is going to be gone. Hilton, if he has a good year, or if he doesn't, then he's going to be passed by,
Mm-hmm.
Then it really opens up for Zavion Thomas there. And they're going to be loaded at quarterback and skill position. So I love that pick. That's a very good pick. Zach, you want to take one more and then we'll take a break?
Yeah, so I'm going to go with so this might be early for where you would take him, but I can't take John Mateer because I already took one of those guys. So I'm going to go Zevi Eckhaus with the assumption that you already own John Mateer in your dynasty league and try and lock down that quarterback room at Washington State. So we've talked about this a lot, but love the schedule. Love the system. One of those guys, whoever gets that job is going to be, he's going to be super valuable this year, I think. So again, he's not a guy I would normally take probably this early unless you have like a Mateer or you're just trying to lock down that room. So I'm going to go with Zevi Eckhaus here at 2.5.
Dude, why not? Such a high ceiling shot, especially Wazoo going down in the Mountain West. I mean, come on. I'm willing to see what happens there. And like you said, there's nothing wrong with collating assets around a high value QB running back room. Like, I don't have a problem with that at all. So you spend an early pick and then a late supplemental pick to lock down a premier position. Fine.
Yep.
Good pick.
Yep. I absolutely love it. And, it's interesting. I mean, Phil still has him as his number 1 QB.
He does. Yeah.
So, and I'm not saying that Phil Still's always right, but it's interesting. I do like Eckhaus's ability.
Phil Steele used to be gospel. And last year, he had some real questionable winning in terms of some of those battles. I was just like, man, Phil, what's going on, buddy, here? But hey.
Yeah.
Dude, he's an institution. And when I started doing college fantasy football, like I said, many, many moons ago, Phil Steele was the Bible. He was the Bible to what we're doing. You went by what he said. It was gospel. Luckily, we've progressed to a point where we can follow everything so closely in camp. But, man, I still love my Phil Steele magazine.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Can't get away from that.
Oh, it's
all right. Yep. Well, we're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, we're going to finish up the last 7 picks of the round 2. All right. I am up, and I should have been more prepared for this. I'm going to go with Chris Brazzell. He's a guy that I picked in the last one.
Yeah, he was my next one.
Yeah. I mean, he's a guy that I picked him in Jared's DTN draft. And he's just a guy, again, this is a position that can have a lot of upside, right? In that Tennessee offense, outside wide receiver, could be Mike Matthews, right? He would probably already have gone in drafts before Chris Brazzell. We've seen Brew McCoy get hurt almost every year. And so there's just opportunities for Brazzell to really stamp it, make his mark here and have a good season. He's going to have multiple years left. I think he's only a redshirt sophomore. And man, he's got some traits. He's 6'5", 200 pounds. And so guys like that, like you can usually find, I think he's going to be what they wanted Deontay Thornton to be ultimately in the offense. But he's worth the risk here for me at this spot in the draft. Proton, I'll let you take it from here.
Yeah, no problem. I am gonna go. Like I said, I had Brazzell queued up and ready. I am gonna go though with a running back, and it's something that in terms of C2C, I think that a very viable late round running back that I didn't see him get taken in the C2C draft with Campus to Canton that just went on last week. I didn't see him taken at all in that, and I had him queued up, and we went 15 rounds, 12 teams, and that is Kalel Mullings for Michigan. I know Mike's going to be very happy to hear that out there somewhere in the ether, but we're just sort of accepting that Donovan Edwards is going to make up for his lack of vision, his running into the back of blockers. And, we're just going to overlook that fact and the fact that it was obvious that Blake Corum was the bell cow, 20-plus touchdown running back. He got all those goal line carries, got all the short yardage work. Mullings was the guy who came in and spelled him and took any of that work. If Corum wasn't up to it, it wasn't Donovan Edwards who was doing the grind stuff. He hit the home runs here and there, and he's very good catching passes. But man, meat and potatoes time. I think we're sleeping on Kalel Mullings, and he's going to have 10 touchdowns. That's going to happen. I feel like that's a bottom of 10 touchdowns going to happen. It's just a matter of, does he get any of the receiving work like we saw with Corum? He had 10 receptions last year, barely 100 yards. And does he get enough of that first, second down work to punch in 13, 14, 15 touchdowns, get 700-800 yards, and make himself in a deep league somebody who's viable? I think there's a world that exists where Donovan Edwards just simply doesn't produce to the level that he needs to, especially with the new staff kind of coming in. I mean, obviously, I know that, it's the same guys, but Harbaugh's gone. His influence, it's out of there. Kalel Mullings is a true warhammer running back, and I think late for a low cost of acquisition, especially in a C2C format, where you could see him drafted in the 4th, 5th round, you could get something out of him in terms of potential at the NFL level for nothing. I just feel like he's somebody who's been overlooked, and this late in the draft, somebody I wanted to get a little shine.
Yeah, I love that. I got a guy queued up like that we'll talk about here at the end. So I love that. Zach, what you got?
All right, so I'm gonna butcher this guy's name. Trech Kekahuna.
Never mind. I don't have a guy queued up at the end of the draft.
That was a Josh special.
That's funny. I mean, this is the slot in Phil Longo, right? I mean, he's right behind Will Pauling. Young guy. I know, Josh, you're probably going to talk about how he performed in high school. He was a stud in high school. But he's just the next man up in that system. Then it's the slot guy you want. Phil Longo's slot guy, right? So willing to take a chance on him here to get some of that value.
Yeah, and what a name. Like you said, I mean, I can go 2 different directions with this nickname. Like, do you want to go, his first name is legit Trech, Trech. Like, I don't know if you guys, I'm a little older, obviously, than you guys, but Naughty by Nature, OPP, that's Trech. That's Trech. So, you're down with OPP. Yeah, you know me with our boy Trech. And on the other side, dude, it's right there. The big Kekahuna. I mean, I'm dying. I'm dying for him to be a thing. So we get the big Kekahuna rocking right now. 4 catches on 4 targets for 64 yards in the bowl game for Wisconsin. That's what we like to see. Shamari DK, adios, amigo.
Yeah.
And, Bryson Green did not go and do anything to really excite me coming over from Oklahoma State. Why not? All kinds of upside with that pick. Great selection.
Right. I mean, he's been the talk of camp. Spring ball, he was the talk of spring ball. Like, they love him there. I mean, I don't know if he eats into Will Pauling's workload, but they're trying to get 4 wide receiver sets there at Wisconsin because Trech is the second best wide receiver in that offense right now.
And they have my boy TVD now. The
Your
Tyler
boy.
Van Dyke revolution is upon us.
Who can only
What's going to happen?
He can only throw as a slot receiver, so he's great. Like, he'll be fine.
He loves the middle of the field. He will test windows in the middle of the field to his detriment. But
Right.
man, his big arm, he will try it. Will Levis style. He will take chances.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see what happens there. I can't give up on him.
Right. And it is crazy. Trech did outproduce significantly. He outproduced Zachariah Branch in high school on the same team. So there is that. I mean, I'm not saying he's better than Zachariah, but I do think he's a very good wide receiver, and he'll do great in that system.
He's certainly got a path to playing time, you know.
Yep.
And Uptown Anthem, Naughty by Nature, is a jam. That's their best song. It's not OBP. It's Uptown Anthem. So
I love it.
get on that. Classic
All right.
hip-hop.
I'm going to go back to quarterback here, and I'm going to go – who do I got here? I'm going to go Pierce Clarkson from Louisville. I do think that the run of Jeff Brom going after transfer QBs is going to be over after this year. I think Pierce Clarkson, they're really happy with him. He was a big-time get for Louisville out of high school. And I think he is pretty comfortable in that system from spring reports. And I believe that Brom will give him the reins for his junior and senior year. And we all know that Tyler Shuck he's gotten hurt like every year. So
Yeah.
who's to say he's even going to be healthy? And so Pierce Clarkson, man, he's super cheap. And a QB and Jeff Brom system, it's hard to go wrong with that. So I'm going to pick Pierce Clarkson here.
Dude, Brom's system aside, nobody has ever gone broke fading Tyler Shuck. Okay? No one. Said no one. And including me, who he tried to stiff me out of $60 for doing a 50-teamer
What a jerk.
draft thing. Yeah. Tyler Shuck, I'll never let you forget that, buddy. I'll never let you forget it. That being said, I believe we're on my last selection here. Is that where we're at? And I can't help it. The value is here. I just kind of have to do it and hold my nose since I don't know what I'm getting out of this situation. But God, AJ Duffy with my last pick. San Diego State, Sean Lewis made Colin Schley a household name here in college fantasy football circles. AJ Duffy, just a disappointing showing in relief of Jordan Travis there at Florida State. Did not like what I saw. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Again, mixed reports kind of out of camp. Some good and some bad. You know, we'll see how that materializes. But man, I mean, it's all there for you, AJ. It's all there. Rolling out the red carpet to be in charge of a 35-point per game offense. And if you can't handle it, well, you got a true freshman coming in who was an 89 rating, according to 247 Sports and Danny O'Neill, that you can also go and take him and just make sure that you're covered pretty much up and down the present and the future, you know, in terms of what you're looking at to do in these supplemental drafts. So I'll do it. I'll go with AJ Duffy, 6% owned, and hope that Sean Lewis can work his magic.
That had to hurt you, Photon.
Killed me to do it. You should be standing there. I had to. It's the value. You got to do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty obvious that he wasn't going to be able to play at the Florida State P4 ACC level. Even at the All-American game when he was in high school, the Under Armour game, he really struggled in that game. But hopefully, you know, step down in competition will be good for him, and he will step up. So, Zach, what you got with your last pick?
All right. I am not sure. So this is a guy I've taken a couple times in our CFF drafts. He had one good game, running back Freddie Brock at Georgia State. I don't even know what to expect from that offense, but he ran for 276 yards in the bowl game, which sticks out to me. So he's a guy that's out there. I guess, he's a senior. I don't, maybe not a great pick there, but looking at the running back depth, there wasn't a whole lot there that I loved on the list. So he's one of those guys that you could probably get some value from this year. So I picked Freddie Brock and I immediately regret the pick.
Oh man. Well, I was down to two guys at this last pick. I was down to Jacurri Brown and Jay Harris, just because I think Jay Harris, I liked him a lot, especially in the spring game. I think he's got some talent. He could take over in that backfield next year if Noah Whittington moves on and Jordan James goes to the NFL. But I'm not going to take him. I'm going to take Jacurri Brown. And I just think he's a great fit for the Gus Malzahn system. He's a guy that can run the ball quite a bit. He's a bigger guy, so he's going to be able to take some hits. I'm not sure that that KJ Jefferson gets out of this year even healthy. And so Jacurri Brown is basically almost an exact blueprint or carbon copy of KJ Jefferson in so many ways, except more dynamic as a runner. So I think he's in a great system for him at UCF. Jacurri Brown, you'll have at least for 2 more years. I don't know if he's going to have an NFL career, so he may be around for even longer. And I just think he's a great fit for that system. And I don't know who else is really going to compete with him there at UCF. So, man, Froton, you called it, man. You earlier today, you're like 2 rounds. Let's do it. Like we could rapid fire this thing. And I said, no way. There's no way that we could do it. And we did it. That was incredible. So I'm super excited. Hey, do you guys have any work that you guys want to promote? Whatever you guys are doing on any other sites or anything on our site?
I'll go to before I even get on that, we'll go in the chat. I want to give some guys some respect. Brett Pagney, thank you very much for everything. Obviously, he's been in a often commenter. Ryan Karp is arguably the MVP of the CFF All Access private chat. We cannot thank him enough for what he does for the community in terms of all the best balls. If you're looking to get into a college fantasy football best ball draft, you got to go to Karp. He is the guy that handles that. Him, Jared as well. Obviously, Jared goes without introduction. Everybody knows the great Jared Palmgren. We appreciate him, significantly. If it weren't for him, he put this whole list together for us. And I know that took a significant amount of time. So we cannot do without giving Jared his props. So thank you very much for that, guys.
Yeah, that's awesome. Hey, it is CFF best ball season. It's been for 3 months. And it is currently at Fantasy Points. It is best ball week. And so our NFL guys are doing a ton of stuff with best balls. They just put out a guide. And so check that stuff out on the NFL side, but also, man, like you said, Froton, like Karp has done a great job with best balls this whole offseason. So support him. He's got a P4 only one that he's trying to start off now. So if you're new to this, P4 only is a little bit less intimidating. Again, we have ADP on our site. Jared's got live best balls on Sunday nights, so you guys can get into that as well. Man, let's expand CFF, and best ball is the best way to do it, in my opinion. It's the lowest barrier for entry. And again, we have ADP on the site. It's never been easier to do CFF drafts and best balls. And so join us in that. Hey, all Froton, myself, Zach, we have been working hard on a CFF preseason guide that we're going to put out for free. We're highlighting kind of our top 25 players deep each position with profiles on each and projections and all that stuff. And so we're going to release that by the end of the month. It's going to be completely free, a little primer of what we got going on the site and what you can look forward to during the season. And so, man, please join us for that and support us in that. Also, tell your friends about this show, man. If you like what we're doing, please subscribe, share this with other people. We want to grow this space. This is a passion for all of us, including those in the chat. And so please help us grow this thing. We would love that. Next week, we are going to go ahead. Froton, you got something?
I just got one thing, and Jared mentioned this in the chat, which I do want to, the one thing I kind of want to promote, other than I'll have some stuff coming out about the Elite 11 as I'm there over the next 3 days. But on Sunday, I will be on Jared's show. All right. Again, number 1 all-time guest host in the history of Campus to Canton. Number 1 all-time. I'm going to extend my all-time lead on Jared's show, and it's a very special show because I will be recording for the first time in my life with none other than Justin Leo of Volume Pigs. I am so excited to record with Justin Leo. There's so many things I want to ask about him. I want to learn. I want to know more about him. I want to get through the whole who is Justin Leo thing. I'm very excited about this. So I would be remiss if I didn't mention that appearance on Sunday with Jared and Justin. Big show. Very excited.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, hey, join them, support that, man. That's gonna be a fun show. I look forward to you and Justin holding that down. So that's gonna be a lot of fun. One last thing. For this next week on this show, we're going to do a Q&A on Dynasty. So we're going to be putting out on Twitter, some other places, just we want to field your questions and want to answer those in our next show. And so ask any questions you got. You can ask them in the chat on this show or on Twitter, whatever. We're going to be taking those questions and answering those next week here. But until then, do small things with great love. Thanks, guys. Peace.
PV Pub.
What? What?
Why are you shaking your head? You're welcome.